This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome, everybody, to the Week in Review. This is your host, Matt, and I've got, of course, Anthony DeMarco with me, but it's not current state. We've got a bit of a kind of a hybrid show for you guys tonight, and we're going to be doing a little bit more than just focusing on one topic. We're going to be kind of cherry-picking some things that are big-ticket items, some of the things you guys are talking about, want us to talk about, and the things that are going on right now in WWE. So as we are on the road to WrestleMania, and more specifically on the road to the Elimination Chamber in just a few weeks, we're going to be discussing some of those things for you guys. So welcome to the show, Anthony. I'm ready to go. How about you?
Yeah, man. I'm glad we could get together for this. Obviously, we figured out that our schedules kind of conflicted for tomorrow, or not really your schedule, not really our schedules, more like my schedule, more like my schedule as usual, threw a monkey wrench into the plans. But it's kind of cool to be back on here to talk about, specific shows like Raw and SmackDown and cover kind of the week, as opposed to our broader discussions, which I obviously love to talk about as well. But all in all, just happy that we could make it work for a show this week.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, as you said, our current state is always fun, and we focus in on one, maybe two topics. But tonight, we're going to try to run as many topics by you guys as possible. We won't get to everything. We've slotted ourselves for about an hour here. So, if there's things that we didn't talk about, I'll be putting those guys, by the way, exclusively on Patreon. I'll be doing kind of a sideshow there for patrons. But nonetheless, let's dive into it, and let's talk about some big ticket items here. And we got to talk about the biggest ticket item. And I know that this has always been the central focus of our discussions on our current state, and rightfully so. It's the biggest storyline going on in wrestling, arguably, and that is Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns, and Cody Rhodes looming for WrestleMania. So this week we got Sami Zayn attacking Roman Reigns at the end of SmackDown in a hooded sweatshirt, and crowd, again, still very hot for Sami, popped huge for him. He got a spear on Roman, and then he ends up getting beat down. And, no Jey Uso, though. I mean, Jey Uso, I don't want to get lost here. I don't want him to get lost in this whole thing, as Jey Uso has not shown his face since he walked out on the Bloodline at the Royal Rumble. And next week, he's got a tag team title match. So how do you feel this is going so far with Sami, Roman, and now the Jey Uso dynamic?
Well, the Jey Uso dynamic is definitely a wild card in all of this, right? So you're kind of expecting Jey Uso to come out this week on SmackDown, and kind of they go the road that you suggested, where he is completely a ghost. You don't see him at all. But what we do get is kind of like almost an immediate, not payoff, but immediate retribution from Sami Zayn, only to be taken out by the lasting members of the Bloodline in Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso. So, I mean, you're seeing kind of like not so much a slow burn, but kind of a complex burn with a lot of layers. And it really makes you wonder where they're going beyond the chamber, right? Because obviously they're already advertising Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, and we know how both of us feel about that. And now it's officially booked that in Montreal, main event, you're going to have Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Championship. But where do they go after this? And that's why I can't imagine that Elimination Chamber is going to be the end of the road for this story, because of the Jey Uso factor. Like, if Jey Uso was still side by side with the Bloodline, we're all in law, then it would have put the low wins. Goes back to join Sami. They go on to face the Usos at WrestleMania for the Undisputed Tag Team Championships. And then we see how that plays out. But this Jey Uso thing really has me thinking that I don't know if it's as cut and dry as we may think. And maybe Cody versus Roman Reigns isn't a slam dunk. Maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part, but it's really got me thinking.
that's the part that I like, is it's got me thinking as well, and I think that's what they want us to do, is think about it. And Jay, right now, if he returned, I mean, he's a big babyface. He's already turned himself babyface, but the key is the follow-up. Is this a true turn? I mean, he seemed conflicted. That's why he walked out. He didn't know what to do. He was torn, and then he just left. And as I had predicted, he just isn't on SmackDown. I don't think he'll be there next week either. I think what's going to happen is we'll have Solo Sikoa be the one to fill in for Jay on behalf of Jimmy in that tag team title match, and Jay will still be nowhere to be found. I don't think Jay's going to show up until Elimination Chamber. You're not going to see his face. You might hear that, oh, Jimmy got a text from him, a cryptic thing or this or that, but I do not believe you're going to see Jey Uso on TV until that time, because it builds anticipation of what is Jay going to do when he returns. Instead of blowing that off on SmackDown, why wouldn't you want to tell that part of the story at Chamber? And what I think personally is going to happen, early prediction, is Jay's going to come back, I think, at Chamber, and it'll look like he's going to attack Roman. He's conflicted. Ultimately, he's going to side with the bloodline. He's going to say blood's thicker than water. He'll come up with, some kind of analogy there of why he's stuck with Roman, even though he didn't agree with everything that he's done. And turn on Sami, thus setting up a Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso tag team title match at WrestleMania. I think this is all leading to, I believe, again, the predictable outcome here. It's not an awful outcome, but it's not one you and I and a lot of other fans want, which is Sami in the main event. I think we're going to have to settle for them, Sami and Kevin versus the Usos at WrestleMania, probably defeating them for the tag titles, but still, I think that's ultimately where this is leading, is Jay's back, crowd's going to pop huge, and then wham, he hits a super kick on Sami that ends up costing him the match. Spear, bam, you're done, and there goes Roman Reigns, victorious and retaining the championship.
Because we both feel, even though we don't want to feel this way, because we both feel that this is ultimately going towards Cody versus Roman, just like everyone's suggesting, and you think that it's going to play out at Elimination Chamber exactly as you just laid it out, with Jay coming back, you think that he's turning babyface and he ultimately sides with the bloodline. Has it made you any less excited for the culmination of the Sami Roman angle at Elimination Chamber?
Yeah. Now, yes, it does, because we've been building to this match. We've thought about this match for, how many months? 5, 6, 7 months that we've thought about this and say we could see it happening, and that's going to be so cool, and it happens that, Sami could be the one to take out Roman. And when you build to a match for 7 months that ends up being an absolute nearly guarantee, and it pretty much is, for all intents and purposes, a guarantee that Roman Reigns is not losing. I'd say a 99.999% chance that Roman Reigns retains, because they've already come up with the promotional materials. They're printing, Cody and Roman on the side of trucks. They're coming up with all the marketing materials. It's kind of set in stone now. They're not going to change it. And side note, I also don't like when people challenge a person instead of a championship, because when they do that immediately after the Rumble, that tells you can add 60 days to whoever they just challenged, because now you know that they are not going to lose that belt for at least 60 days. I really despise that they challenge the person instead of saying, hey, I'm going to challenge whoever's holding this championship at WrestleMania, because then, it just completely takes the fun out of it. So obviously Cody couldn't challenge for anything other than the Undisputed Universal Championship, because there's only one belt. But the women's side of things, and we can talk about the women in a few minutes here, but Rhea challenged Charlotte. She didn't challenge for the SmackDown Women's Championship, and I'm like, that's giving away 60 days of potentially Charlotte losing, and then you're like, well, there goes that. But all the way back here, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but the whole thing here of predictability is killer when it comes to this match, that we're going to get a fun match, but unfortunately, as hot as Sami is, as hot as this storyline is, and the match that people want to see, it's a foregone conclusion, and it's really sad to say. So yes, it does take some of the fun out of this.
And it's kind of demoralizing because Sami Zayn and the Bloodline was the story of 2022. In a lot of ways, it saved the intrigue of the Bloodline from a fan perspective, from my perspective. I believe you felt the same way. You know, back in June 2022, I was talking about how I was getting bored of this. And then you fast forward 2-3 months and it's the most intriguing angle on television. And now and the entire blow off to it feels like it's going to be wrapped up in 3 weeks. And then it's on to Cody Rhodes. And again, I'm not a huge Cody Rhodes guy. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole like we did last week. But it's making me resent him even more. Or I never even resented the guy. He just wasn't my cup of tea. Now, because he's kind of he's been pigeonholed into this storyline, and it feels like we're on a fast track, like a treadmill to wrap up Sami Zayn versus the Bloodline and Roman Reigns. It's caused resentment with me, and it makes me feel like for the second WrestleMania in a row, I really don't care about the main event, which sucks, right? Because Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns should feel like a massive deal. But like we talked about last week, this has a Daniel Bryan-esque kind of feel to it. And for me right now, it's Sami Zayn or bust against Roman Reigns, and it just feels like it's going to be wrapped up sooner than it probably should have been. And you know, even on SmackDown this week, I felt like them going that quickly to Sami Zayn attacking Roman Reigns physically is indicative that this isn't going to be a super long burn. And it does kind of feel, unfortunately, like it's going to be wrapped up by Chamber.
I mean, they could. What I was thinking is, okay, they pause this story at WrestleMania. Cody, maybe Cody loses. You know, maybe Cody does lose, and then they pick it back up at Backlash. And then, you know, maybe that's what they happen, or they don't revisit it until SummerSlam. Sami and Roman go on their own separate paths, and then they reconvene, and maybe that's where Sami could beat Roman at SummerSlam next year. I think really, and this is just so insane to say, if Cody doesn't beat Roman at Mania, and I actually don't know if he will, I'm very torn on that. I don't think Roman Reigns will lose it the next chance until SummerSlam. I mean, like I'm looking at 6 months out right now of the next possible chance that Roman loses that championship after Mania if he doesn't drop it there. So, again, that'll get you past 1,000 days and all that. But, I mean, it's the Cody thing. The only thing I'll say on him, as you mentioned, I don't want to go down that hole of just constant badgering of him. But I mean, he comes in and we're all supposed to just, for some reason, just accept him as a main eventer because he's a AEW to WWE guy. Like, what? I don't know. I don't get it. Like, I don't understand why we're all supposed to just immediately accept him as this main event guy. Nonetheless, when you have a guy like whoever it is, I don't even care what his name is, but when you have a guy that is in the main event that you feel shouldn't be there because there's a guy that's more deserving and you're more emotionally invested, like Sami Zayn, there's going to be resentment. You're feeling it. I'm feeling it. Not just because we don't like his character. It's just resentment for the fact I don't care who it was. They should not be in there right now. It should be Sami versus Roman at Mania. And right now, I'm very interested to hear what that crowd is going to do at WrestleMania. The crowd that is the quote unquote hardcore audience, the ones that are the WrestleMania and especially the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania crowd. What are they going to do to Cody? Are they all of a sudden going to stop this kind of this quick little just love affair with him and realize, wait a minute, why isn't Sami in this spot again? This doesn't feel right, and I think there could be some boos. They are on they're treading they're walking a very fine line with this whole story, and if they can get to Mania and not have Cody turn heel organically and not by design, it'll be a miracle, because there is going to be so much resentment for Cody, and people are telling me, well, you could do a triple threat. That's even worse. That's the worst option that you could have if you're trying to keep Cody Rhodes as a babyface, because it's Sami or nothing, as you said. It's Sami or bust. So they're walking a very fine line right now with Cody.
And I just bought my tickets tonight for the Elimination Chamber, so I'm going to witness that live. And Montreal has historically had a very hostile crowd to begin with, and I think that Roman Reigns is going to win. I believe he's going to retain, and I think it's going to be their way of getting nuclear heat on Roman Reigns, vis-a-vis via the Montreal live crowd, and trying to permeate that into the audience watching at home and every other city they go to on the road to WrestleMania, and then use Cody to kind of springboard off that as the ultimate babyface. But I wonder if it's going to go from like nuclear heel heat that they want and is good heat, and if it may turn into just a complete rejection of the storyline. Do you see it maybe being hijacked because everyone will just be so upset with where they ultimately went with it and pushing Sami Zayn to the side?
I thought I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's a distinct possibility. Do I think it's likely? No, but it's absolutely possible. It's not out of the question. I would say that it's something they should be concerned about. And yes, Cody Rhodes is getting a good reaction right now. Very good reaction. I mean, I'm not going to pretend he's not. He is. Crowd seems to really like him. But I think that once he gets put into Sami Zayn's universe of his story, and even when when the fans have to go and look at this story and look at Cody, and they have to look at Sami, and they're going to go, wait a minute, Sami's our guy, not Cody, right? Like, when they have to ever make that comparison in their minds, and they're going to start to do it, I think that's the downfall of Cody, and it could lead, if they do this wrong, if things really go off the rails, absolutely, the fans could just outright reject this match. They could. Now, Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes are very good in-ring wrestlers. They can put on, even if the crowd is booing it at the beginning, I think that they're so good in the ring that they will be able to bring the crowd back in one way or the other. I don't think it's going to be a Brock Lesnar, Bill Goldberg, WrestleMania 20 disaster. Because they're so good. Like, that match obviously was a disaster because both men weren't even doing anything for the first 10 minutes of the match. I mean, it's just, but it's possible that happens. I don't think it's likely. In the worst case, yeah. And part of me actually kind of wants that. Part of me the evil part of me wants to see it get completely booed out of the building just on the merit of, trying to shoehorn Cody Rhodes into the spot that is really meant for Sami Zayn this year.
And I wonder if it's just because it's kind of been predictable, if that ruined it, that we knew, like, how long has Cody Rhodes been the favorite to win the Rumble? Like, honestly, like, it feels like
the second he tore his pec.
Yeah, and you know what? You always say it. I agree. Predictability isn't always a bad thing. And I'm not saying that you always have to be predictable or unpredictable rather, just for the sake of it. But, like, when you're 6 months out and you're calling the winner of the Royal Rumble, like, man, like, that's tough. And, look, I know most people are super behind Cody Rhodes. And you know what? Maybe, all in all, everyone's going to get to have their cake and eat it, too. And we'll be happy. Well, most people will be happy that KO and Sami win the tag titles and Cody wins the Undisputed Championship, or he's just in the Undisputed Championship match against Roman Reigns, and it's this big-time main event, and, everyone could sing Kumbaya, but I think that the Sami Zayn story and program is just way more over than they realize, than WWE realizes, and I've seen reports all week that, like, management doesn't feel like Sami Zayn's a main eventer in terms of a WrestleMania, and it really feels like the Daniel Bryan story coming to life again, but this time almost in a real life way, and them actually refusing to do it. And I guess, like, it doesn't have to end with Sami against Roman at WrestleMania, but I just feel like if it does wrap up with Sami against Roman at the Chamber, and then it just kind of shifts over to the Usos versus Sami and KO, it'll just feel like a massive letdown and just an underwhelming payoff for all the months they built. Like, maybe if we had more runway before Mania and we could have, like, a 2-month long, 2 pay-per-view long story to culminate Sami versus Roman, I wouldn't feel so robbed of it. But the fact that it feels like we're going to, wash our hands of it in 3 weeks feels a bit too rushed for me.
Yes, and it's so weird to say that the hottest guy in wrestling is not going to be a part of the main event of WrestleMania. That's just, it doesn't work in wrestling. It doesn't compute, and the fans will catch on and start to turn on it. I mean, that's the way it goes. The hottest guy should be a part of the WrestleMania main event. It should be, in most cases. I don't see how this works because they decided 7 months ago, maybe when Triple H brought him back, hey, why don't you come back? We'll have you win the Rumble. You're going to be a champion and be the one to take it off Roman. I mean, that actually might have been a conversation that Triple H had with Cody, because ever since Cody came back, the day he came back, he made his mission statement about the championship. So I I think you add that on top of the fact that Cody's laid on so thick every week, whether you're watching Raw or SmackDown, and he has like his promo videos and his comeback videos. He had one on SmackDown. Like, it's constantly in your face about Cody and his return story. And I'm like, okay, cool. The guy came back from an injury that's good for him. Like how many hundreds of guys have come back from injuries this year that we just don't hear about and we don't get video packages on? And like, you know, it's an admirable thing to do, but it's not uncommon. They're acting like this is the first time anyone's ever come back from an injury, and they're reminding you so much to try to connect you with Cody. And for me, it's just so transparently nauseating. But again, I'm trying really hard not to go down the Cody road. The last thing I'll say on this, and then I'll wrap it up, I'll ask you to wrap it up on your end with this, because we could talk about this forever, is this Sami Zayn KO likely tag title win at Mania. You know, I think fans will look at that and think it's a consolation prize for Sami. And they're going to say, yeah, thanks, but it feels like Daniel Bryan winning the Intercontinental Championship at whatever, WrestleMania 31, I think it was.
Yeah, exactly. And to open the show.
Yeah. So, you know, they're going to look at it and, well, he won a championship. He took it off the Usos, who's held it for like 500, 600 days. That's an accomplishment. It's like, yeah, it would be for like 95% of the guys, but when you're in Sami's position, a very rare position to be in, being the hottest guy in the industry right now, that's a consolation prize. That, don't try to lie to me that's a true place, the right spot for Sami, and they're going to try to sell it like that. But I'm telling you, fans are going to see through that, I think.
Oh, 100%. Like, and the thing is like at this point, I almost feel like Sami versus Jay in a one-on-one match would feel more like important at a WrestleMania, because Sami has really blazed his own trail for the first time since probably he debuted on the main roster, and he was the underdog from the underground. And even then, he was just like a mid-card guy. He didn't even hold the mid-card championship, the Intercontinental title, until 2018, 2019. So this is the first time he's really truly caught in traction as a singles guy. And if you immediately put him back with KO, which, I mean, that'll always work. They're like peanut butter and jelly based on their history and real life friendship and all that. But I just feel like it's going to deflate him. And then, okay, it's a nice moment. They win the tag team championships. The Usos are dethroned. KO, I believe, would become a Grand Slam champion with that victory as well. But then where do you go from there? And I just feel like all the wind would be taking out Sami's sails. So, you know, again, don't want to go down this diatribe too much, but I think I would almost rather him have a one-on-one match versus Jay than a tag match with Kevin against the Usos.
That actually, even though a title's not involved, that actually sounds better to me, because it doesn't seem like they're trying to cover up the fact that he's not in the main event. Like, it's because it's related to the story.
Exactly.
It's one-on-one. Yeah, so like,
it's not diluted with KO. Not to say that I don't like KO, but you don't want any of the spotlight taken off of Sami.
And when you look at it through KO's perspective, though, like we're like totally disregarding Kevin Owens on this and not disrespecting him, but like for him, he's probably like, you know, sitting there hoping that it's a tag team title match, because for him, Sami Zayn is, for the first time in his career, overshadowing Kevin.
Yep.
And Kevin's still, you know, he's over too, but not on the level that Sami is right now. And who knows how hot and how long Sami's going to stay this hot. But, you know, I'm sure KO from his perspective is like, come on, man, like, no, we should do the tag title match, right? It's better for both our careers. Like, he's probably he's kind of in the opposite position where he doesn't have a clear path to WrestleMania if it's not with Sami. Like, where does Kevin Owens go for WrestleMania if, you know, it's not in a tag team title match? What are you going to have, a one-on-one with Jimmy, one-on-one with Jay, but then the tag titles aren't defended at WrestleMania? Like, that's kind of weird. They're in this is fascinating to me how it's all going to play out. But any closing comments before we change topics?
No, just that I feel like either way there's going to be a disappointment, and I'm really anxious and kind of scared to see what the reaction is going to be live in the Bell Center in downtown Montreal in a few weeks. Yeah. But that's going to be a hell of a night, that's for sure.
You guys can be brutal. Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear it. I mean, I will. To me, the most standout memory for the Bell Center for me, selfishly, was Stone Cold returning at No Way Out in 2003. I mean, after his 7-month hiatus and taking his ball and going home, and he faced Eric Bischoff that night. I mean, you guys were just out of your minds. So
on the Montreal crowd, and obviously I'm subjective, but This is the first pay-per-view I remember going to. I did not go No Way Out, and actually the last pay-per-view that was in Montreal was Breaking Point in 2009. And so it's going to be a really hyped up crowd. But I remember when I went to a Monday Night Raw in '05, and it was the go-home show to SummerSlam. And Shawn Michaels came out in a suit and started cutting like this heel promo, was just super running down the Montreal crowd. Obviously, everyone hates him. And he starts chirping Bret Hart. And Bret Hart's music hit, and when that like guitar note went off, I literally thought that the Bell Center was going to crumble. Like, it was so loud, and then obviously it was a ruse, right? And then he starts mocking Bret Hart's like mannerisms, and then the crowd just went ballistic. It was so loud in that building for that promo. You want to talk about nuclear heat? I don't know if you remember that, but that was crazy.
Huh. I just watched it last
Really?
week because it was for me, and you know, '05 seems like, you know, 30 years ago, but guys, I'm telling you right now, if you haven't seen it, you gotta check, just YouTube it. I think it's HBK calls out Bret Hart in '05. It was in 2005. You'll be able to find it. He did an awesome promo. He just leaned in. I love how he just leaned into it. He didn't try to avoid the fact that he isn't actually playing a heel. That he just dove right into it. I think he was facing Hulk Hogan at that SummerSlam, by the way.
It was the go home right before that.
Yeah,
SummerSlam.
yeah. So when he just leaned into it, and then he just said, "Who's your daddy, Montreal?" And then said that Bret screwed Bret, and he screwed Bret once, he'd screw him again, and then Bret Hart's guitar riff hit, and the building. It was. I can't imagine being there. It must have been the loudest pop you've ever heard in your life.
It was deafening. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was absolutely nuts. But yeah, I could talk about Montreal crowds all night.
Oh God, yeah. So you guys, I'm counting on you. I'm counting on you guys to boo Cody. All right, please. I'm taking it personally if you don't. All right. So let's get into the women's side of things. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we have Charlotte Flair. She takes on Sonya Deville this week, and yet another loss for Sonya. That's kind of Sonya's thing. I think she's good on the mic. She's good in the ring. I think she's just a B player right now. And I think she's capable of being women's champion, but right now she's just kind of the setup woman for the top stars. And Charlotte is now on warpath with Rhea Ripley for WrestleMania. And how do you feel about, well, first of all, this match with Sonya Deville? I'm sure you had no doubt in your mind that Charlotte Flair was going to win. But, when you look at the women's division, Charlotte, Rhea, how do you feel about this on SmackDown?
Well, I mean, I, like you, was expecting Rhea to go against Bianca because I think that Rhea versus Bianca could main event the second night of WrestleMania. I think it's that big. I think Bianca has established herself probably as the top woman on the roster, and I think Rhea has the potential to surpass her. And it does feel like two kind of like rising stars, like on a collision course with one another. And, her going to SmackDown to face Charlotte Flair, like, I get it. Obviously, they didn't have their moment at WrestleMania 36, the COVID WrestleMania. It got hijacked, and that was for the NXT championship, so it wasn't on the same, I guess, pedestal, if you will. So I understand them going back to the well with that. This time, Rhea's a heel. Charlotte's the babyface. 3 years later, Rhea's had a nice run on the main roster, already a Raw, albeit a forgettable run, but a run as Raw Women's Champion. And I still do think that they view Charlotte Flair as kind of like the benchmark. She's almost like not the gatekeeper. I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but she's kind of like what you have to pass to like show that you've arrived, as the main top woman. So I get it that the logic of Rhea as this new up-and-comer challenging to be the top woman in the company would have to go through Charlotte Flair, who's kind of like the standard bearer at this point. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, are you ever going to have an opportunity to have Rhea as hot as she is and as Bianca as hot as she is, and I'm not talking about physically, obviously, but I mean, as over as they are, I guess that's probably the better wording to use, so no one could kind of misconstrue it.
Right.
Are you going to have that again? Probably. I think these two women are here to stay, but you can't bank on that. So I do really find it interesting that they've like went by the wayside with it. And I have one theory about it, and I don't think it's true, but I've thought about it a lot recently. Do you think they're scared that Bianca and Rhea would overtake Cody and Roman in terms of hype?
Ooh, I didn't think of it like that. I don't think in terms of hype. I think they actually have a chance of putting on a better match than Cody and Roman. Or at least as good. Bianca Belair, any match she's involved in, whether it's with Sasha Banks in years past or Becky, she has put on arguably, match of the night, match of the month, with those women, and has done an amazing job. Rhea and Bianca, I've seen them work together before, and they are very good. I think they were the last two competitors in 2 years ago, Royal Rumble,
2021,
maybe. Yeah. So, and I've seen them work together before that. NXT, like they work so well together, and they have very similar styles. They're both powerhouse women. They have not yet crossed paths, and you know what? I complain that they're not crossing paths, but at the same time, I like the fact that maybe they're being kept separate, because that does mean you have an ace in the hole. You have something up your sleeve. You have something you can go to if you need a big match. And it is kind of sad to me that at WrestleMania they're not going to be clashing, because I had been calling it forever. I'm like, it's got to happen, right? Because they originally were supposed to face each other until Rhea had a dental problem, and then there was some other injury she had, and that match got canceled. So it's disappointing to me, but I mean, how can they not get to it? That to me is a slam dunk main event for many months for those two women. And do I think that they're afraid it could overshadow Roman and Sami? Roman and I want Roman and Sami, but do I think it could overshadow? I don't think they're thinking that, but it's something to sure. I mean, I don't think so, no. But certainly it could be as good or better of a match in the ring than Cody and Roman, who I think are still going to put on a very good match.
I just wonder, I get it that you probably think that you always have that ace in the hole and you can kick that can down the road, and you want to capitalize on Charlotte still being a top competitor and a top star while Rhea is kind of coming into her own in that regard. But I think sometimes you kick the can so many times down the road that you ultimately run out of racetrack and you never get to it. Like, I know that they fought more times than we can count and more times than we ever wanted to. But is it not weird that Randy Orton and John Cena never faced off against one another at a WrestleMania? Like, I don't know. That feels weird to me, doesn't it?
It's almost impossible to think about given how many times they face each other. It's like The Rock and Triple H never faced each other at WrestleMania. It's like, huh?
Exactly.
What?
Or for me, the most bizarre one, and I'm not counting the WrestleMania 31 cash-in, but you never had Roman versus Seth at a WrestleMania. You never had any two Shield members against each other at a WrestleMania, which, like, it's one of those things that you think that the story writes itself. And I still think today that the main event of WrestleMania 32 should have been Roman versus Dean Ambrose for the WWE Championship, based on how over Dean Ambrose was at that time. But I mean, I just think that you run the risk of, like, well, you don't know where Bianca's going to be in a year. Maybe she gets injured. Maybe she cools off significantly. You don't know where Rhea's going to be in a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now. Like, look, it seems like yesterday that we were talking about the four horsewomen as like the new up-and-comers of the women's division. I remember it like yesterday. And now all of a sudden, Sasha's not in WWE anymore. Becky's already had like arguably the most historic women's run in the history of professional wrestling. Bayley is somewhat of an afterthought. Charlotte is still, kind of as like the queen, for lack of better words. But they're probably on the wrong side of the middle of their careers. And we never had a one-on-one match of Becky versus Charlotte at a WrestleMania. Did we ever have a one-on-one of Charlotte versus Bayley or Charlotte versus Sasha at a WrestleMania? And I get that they did it more times than we count at other pay-per-views, but WrestleMania is the one that we remember. We remember, John Cena versus Shawn Michaels, or HBK versus Undertaker, or Rock versus Cena, or Rock versus Austin 3 times. We remember those one-on-one matches at WrestleMania. We don't remember what happened at Backlash or Unforgiven or Armageddon or whatever. And I just find it very interesting that WWE has, like, in my mind, an instant classic with two of the most up-and-coming wrestlers, not even women's wrestlers, but just wrestlers in general, at their fingertips with Rhea and Bianca, and they're just choosing not to take it.
And you know what? They're risking a lot here because, number one, we've seen Rhea and Charlotte before. I mean, as you mentioned, the COVID WrestleMania, the one that we all never want to rewatch ever again because it's so awkward. We've seen them before, and they have decent chemistry. But here's what I think they're going to run the risk of is, okay, fans have seen it before. It's more fresh in their minds than Bianca versus Rhea. That's a slight problem. Number two, this could run the risk of having the crowd turn on Charlotte in favor of Rhea because people respect what Rhea has done. They know how good she is right now. They know how hot she is right now. The mommy thing, I could envision this match where mommy chants overtakes any Charlotte Flair chants. Because Charlotte Flair, once you get to WrestleMania, people are going to, I think, kind of sour a little bit on the babyface Charlotte character because people don't buy. I don't believe the Charlotte Flair babyface character. She's trying, and she's doing an admirable job, but it just doesn't fit her. The babyface character, some people just don't belong babyfaces at all, and I think Charlotte is that kind of person. And I just think that the fans, once they get there, are going to be more excited to see Rhea get a championship that she so deserves right now because of how good she is. The mommy character with Dominic, the chemistry she has with the entire Judgment Day. I think you could run the risk of the crowd completely turning and doing a double turn, not by design, but just have it happen. So there's that. And do I think it's going to be as good of a match as with Bianca? I actually don't. I think they'll have a good match, but Bianca and Rhea, I think Bianca's the best women's athlete that WWE has, period. And again, they have very similar styles. They work a power, but it's like a powerful athletic style. And they would tear it down. And it's possible Rhea and Charlotte do too, but I don't know. So there's my concerns about this match.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that as well. And I do think that there's a lot of justification into being, hasty about about being stoked for this match. And the other part about this is like, that's obviously going to be the women's match that takes center stage and probably main event night one if I'm, making a bet on it. But then what's going on with Bianca? Like, I've heard for a while that they want to do Ronda versus Bianca, but is that something anyone wants to see?
I've heard, now this is what I just read, and I'll give credit to, it was a Wrestling Inc. or it might have been Sportskeeda, that said that Ronda Rousey actually decided to drop the belt, or she agreed to drop the belt because she wants to get into a tag team title match with Shayna Baszler at Mania and win the women's tag team titles with Shayna Baszler. Yeah. And instead of, I'm just like, what? So, I mean, that's not implausible. Ronda Rousey is a strange person. I mean, she's weird. She just is. So I don't know why that was her motivation. If that's true, that she wants to just get into a tag team title match, because once again, out of nowhere, we have completely forgotten about the women's tag team titles, much less a hilarious quote unquote division that they have. They don't have a women's tag team division. So, I think that that's not a bad idea. But then again, all of a sudden we're not doing Becky Ronda again. How is that not happening? So, I mean, nothing's official yet, but that's what I've heard, is that Ronda wants to do a tag team title match and win the tag titles with Shayna Baszler.
That would be weird, but I mean, that would be a situation that, although I don't really like the team, it would instantly give them credibility. Like those tag titles. I mean, kind of in the same way that Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler gave them credibility. Like, looking back on it, were the titles not the most important as when Nia and Shayna had them?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. I think those Shayna's like, oh my God, another. Like, she's like, can I just have a singles career? Right? So, yeah.
And look, if that's what it is, that would probably be a good spot for Ronda. Honestly, if they can make Ronda a consistent character with her not always being like overruling the women's division, I think I could get behind her, honestly, because I do think there's value there. She has the legitimacy behind her. She is a real life badass in a lot of ways, obviously a real life fighter. bit of a weird cap, but look, if you don't have to always shove her down our throats as like the ruler of the women's division, I think there's something there. But if it's not Ronda, like, where are we going with Bianca? Is it a triple threat with Bayley and Becky? Like, I mean, at this point, I would assume, I guess it would make sense. Those were two competitors that she had significant rivalries with over the last 12 months or so, more so with Becky Lynch. Becky and Bayley's rivalry between each other has fallen flat. And what else are they going to do at WrestleMania? So, I mean, yeah, I guess at this point, that would be my bet for the Raw Women's Championship. And it's not bad. Like, Becky is still arguably the most popular women's competitor in the company right now. I think Bayley has lost a hell of a lot of steam, but hey, I mean, it is what it is. I still think she does have that clout, but do you think that would be the favorite for the Raw Women's title at this juncture?
Probably, yeah. I see a multi-woman match for Bianca, which is, I don't like it because Bianca, when she's one-on-one, is at her best, and I like when the focus is on, to me, all championship matches should be one-on-one at WrestleMania. That's just how I feel. But if it's going to be a triple threat or a fatal four-way or a fatal five-way or a, whatever, six-pack, I hope not. It's probably going to be triple threat. I think it's going to be Becky, Bayley, and Bianca. That's probably what it's going to be. I won't hate it. It's certainly got a lot of name brand value there, and maybe they'll make me really care about the winner of that. Honestly, like, I don't even know if Bianca is going to come out of WrestleMania with the championship. I think she actually will retain at WrestleMania. I don't know. If they give it to Becky, it's kind of like been there, done that. At the same time, Bayley is ice cold right now, as you said. Maybe they can make a case as we move forward for her to, heat up. But then if you go that route, like we're now seeing Becky versus Bayley right now, and it's not that interesting. We're finally going to get the steel cage match this week on Raw. Like, okay, but fans generally don't seem to really care about Becky versus Bayley, generally. So if you're going to put them, 2/3 of them, into the women's main event for the Raw Tag Team title, Raw Women's Championship, then I don't know how interested fans are going to be in that. I think it's Bianca. It should have been Rhea. If it's not Rhea, then, probably Bayley. I think it should be Bianca versus Bayley. To me it should be Becky versus Ronda on the Raw side, and it should be Bianca versus Bayley for the the Raw Women's Championship. Just because it's one-on-one, Bayley can get herself back to where she was. I just don't think that she's anywhere near it right now. And it's a weird place for Bayley. It's such a weird place for her right now. I don't know what to think of what she's doing. She's coming out and like, just her and Becky are cutting like these kind of personal scathing promos on each other, but no one seems to care. And they're having a steel cage match this week, which will be fun. But if people don't care about this right now, they're not going to care about them being injected into the main event of WrestleMania with Bianca Belair. But I could be proven wrong. They've got 6-7 weeks to go. I hope I'm proven wrong.
So at this juncture, I guess as we wrap it up here, would you be content with the direction they're heading right now with both the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championships, or just underwhelmed because they're willingly going away from a match they have at their fingertips with Rhea and Bianca?
Do I feel uninvested is what you mean?
Yeah, do you feel uninvested because they're just willingly giving up on, in my opinion, a blockbuster match at the waiting? Like, I think that Rhea and Bianca is a win-win. Like, and I do think I would be more invested and more hyped for that match than any other match on the card, assuming that they are going with Roman versus Cody and Logan versus Seth and all that. And I just find it crazy. I'm speaking personally here that, like, I feel disengaged in the women's division in a lot of ways heading into WrestleMania because I was so positive they were going to do Rhea versus Bianca, and they're willingly deciding not to do it. And I'm just kind of curious if you feel the same way.
It was a shot to my interest level. Yes, absolutely. When she said Charlotte's name, I'm thinking, well, she's going to say, well, I already faced you at WrestleMania. I need a new challenge, and I want Bianca. Like, I was like, okay, she's mentioning Charlotte, but she's going to turn it. And she didn't turn it. She was talking about how she's the disruptor, and I'm like, well, oh, no. Like, she's the disruptor, talking about how Charlotte always has the belts, and I'm like, it was very disappointing. because we've been there, done that, and it's a fresh matchup with Rhea and Bianca right in front of you. She doesn't have to switch brands. What are we doing? And I hope I'm proven wrong. I hope I'm proven wrong because I want to care about this match. Right now, I don't a whole lot. So does it completely disinterest me from the women's division? No. But the one match that I was looking forward to is now not happening. So they've got some work to do, and they've got some work to do for the next couple of months, if we have that much time, to get me to, and I think a lot of fans, to the point of actually getting invested in this. And as you said, it's the women's division as a whole that is kind of in disarray right now. It feels like things are all up in, there's so much stuff in the air. Like, I don't feel very solidified in a lot of women's characters and stories outside of Rhea Ripley, who's an absolute anchor on Monday Night Raw. I don't feel like really invested and solid and like into a lot of the women's stuff right now. And that's just, it's not disrespect. It's just kind of the way it is right now. I know that the women have come a long way, and I don't know. Yeah. So to answer your question, I'm not completely checked out. I'm just kind of ho-hum about it right now, and especially with Rhea announcing Charlotte, that was a big disappointment. Before we go, though, I got to ask you quickly about Bray Wyatt. I know that because just simply for the fact that after the pitch black match, the Mountain Dew, because there is a difference between just a good old regular pitch black match and a Mountain Dew one. That after that just complete, I mean, it was not a good outcome for a lot of reasons. But after that, I have to ask you, and maybe I have before, but if I have, I guess answer it again. Do you think Bray Wyatt is overrated? Do you think that he is, now you can say with confidence that he is an overrated wrestler?
This is weird. I had this conversation the other night with a friend who is not a Bray Wyatt fan, or at least not a fan of Bray Wyatt in the current, I guess, version of himself. I think Bray Wyatt rewounded a decade ago as the cult leader with the Wyatt family was underrated. I think he was underrated and misutilized, and I think he had a lot of steam behind him, and Vince McMahon didn't pull the trigger. I remember when Bray Wyatt won the WWE Championship at the Elimination Chamber in 2016, I want to say. They could have done a hell of a lot better than they did. And then he ended up dropping it to Randy Orton at a WrestleMania that you were at. One of the more underwhelming payoffs to a very good storytelling aside from that. Just, I don't know what the hell happened. And I think all those years of Bray Wyatt being underutilized kind of inflated people's opinions, mine included, of what he was actually capable of. Now we get Bray Wyatt kind of unleashed, beating to the rhythm of, or kind of walking to the beat of his own drum, calling the shots, we're led to believe. And I think we're realizing that he is overrated in a lot of ways. I think that the current version of himself is overrated. And there was a reason, I guess, why Vince McMahon was reluctant to give him the keys to the castle, or allow him to be the guy, or be the main champion, or give him creative freedom. Because there is something there that's just like, well, dude, do you just want to go make B-level horror movies? Like, do you want to just be an actor? You want to be a screenwriter? You want to be Rob Zombie? You know what I mean? There's something about it. But at the same time, I do think that it's almost like trying to overcompensate for lost time. Because I think the original version of Bray Wyatt with the Wyatt family was one that was one of the most botched and mishandled characters, and not even characters, but groups ever. Like, I think that you could have had the Wyatt family run roughshod over WWE with him as the champion for a year or two. I think squashing him at the hands of The Rock and John Cena at WrestleMania 32 was criminal, and you heard it in the crowd's reaction to when The Rock was actually pumping his tires. So, I mean, I guess I'm guilty of kind of living in the past and being upset that that version of Bray Wyatt was so mishandled, and that cult leader version of Bray Wyatt had a lot of potential. But I would be really, I can't sit here and say that the current return of Bray Wyatt has been good. And maybe he is overrated a bit, and maybe it was just a lot of wishful thinking and hoping that you could rekindle some of that old magic. But I don't even know what the hell Bray Wyatt is anymore. Like, I don't know if he's the Fiend. I don't know if he's a cult leader. Like, I just don't know what he's about. And I think that this is kind of an example of someone getting too creative for their own good.
This is it's a deep question. I don't think it's a clear-cut answer because Bray Wyatt is such a deep, I think he overthinks a lot of things. And Triple H has said this himself, that Rotunda, I think that's the real name, Bray Wyatt.
Rotunda.
So Wyndham. So I think he overthinks a lot, and that's when fans disconnect. And I've said it on this show many times too, where I like where things are going, but like the pacing of things are just, it's too much, or that he just seems to be spinning his wheels, or as LA Knight perfectly put it, he says a bunch of gobbledygook that no one understands. It's exactly right. So he almost tries to get too deep for just being deep at times, instead of just saying, hey man, can we just simplify? The word simple in his mind doesn't exist. It always has to be deeper and deeper and deeper, and there are times for that. And right now, I mean, look, he has been back since I think it was Extreme Rules in October, roughly.
Yeah.
So he's been back now a good 4 months, and since that time, we have seen one new character in Uncle Howdy that people are just, I mean, I got to say, at a very alarming pace, losing interest in who the identity of it is. I mean, like,
well, it
people
seems like
don't
to not even really matter anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It feels like the reveal of his character is inconsequential because Bray Wyatt has said, "Well, I'm Uncle Howdy, I'm everyone." So it's just like, okay, so this whole time it's not been who's behind the mask. It's just that he's another version of Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, that's actually where I was going exactly. Is this may not be somebody like a Bo Dallas that everyone thought it was, or Eric Rowe, whoever. It just could be just another character, and like you said, it's not somebody we know. Like if the guy who is playing Uncle Howdy takes off the mask, it may just be some random guy from NXT, or it probably, as you said, isn't about the reveal. It's just he's a new character. That's all, and that's exactly what it could be. And, so it's not maybe so much the reveal, which at this point, there's nobody they could put in that mask that would make people excited, because they have built it up for too long. And Uncle Howdy, needs to learn how to jump off of scaffolding and not miss his target by 6 feet too, by the way. I mean, that was not a good jump. So Bray Wyatt, I mean, again, even in his matches, I don't think he's the greatest wrestler that has ever lived, but his matches always seem to have to carry some kind of hocus pocus stipulation. And, he has to, then he does the black light stuff now he's got new masks, and he has to incorporate pyro. For some reason, the padding that he landed on needed to explode. Like, what? I don't understand it. I mean, I'm disconnecting kind of quickly from the Bray Wyatt story. And sure, he could pick it up and get me interested, but it needs to move faster and it needs to be simpler. That's not to say I'm a brain dead fan that just needs to, have everything told and spoon fed to him, but it just reaches a point where it's like, dude, okay, there are some fans out there that love sitting and decoding this stuff, and they love sitting and looking at the transcript of what he said, and, oh wait, he said this here and this here. Well, that means it must be this. I'm not going to try to crack the Da Vinci Code here. Just like, you can make it deep, but like cut it off at a point where most fans are going to just disconnect and go, okay, dude, I don't even know what you're saying anymore, what's happening anymore. And you hear it, I think, in the reaction this past week on SmackDown, when we had Bray Wyatt watching the recap of his own match at Rumble against LA Knight, but also Uncle Howdy there with his arm, a hand on his shoulder. And then, we had Uncle Howdy look at the camera, and it's like, what is? I don't even know. I don't even know anymore. And the thing is, when I don't care to know anymore, that's the problem. It's maybe not that I know what's going on. It's the actual caring. And I think the fans are at the point of not caring about what's going on anymore.
It's getting to that point, right? Look at how the result has been coming out of this angle. Like, I think the best positive coming out of Bray Wyatt's return so far is LA Knight. And I don't think it's particularly close.
Isn't that crazy?
It's nuts. Yeah. And I mean, good for him. But I mean, I thought the match was awful. It wasn't at all where it was going to go. I truly thought that the end of that match was going to be Uncle Howdy screwing over Bray Wyatt and LA Knight winning. And that's why I was holding out hope. I'm just like, and then we're going to build to Uncle Howdy versus Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, the reveal, this and that. But now that Uncle Howdy's reveal, or if there even is one, that his identity has taken a back seat, why are we supposed to care? So the entire point of him returning was to to see this new version of Bray Wyatt and him, like battling his past. But now he's almost like embraced his past and he's back to being a heel, but he's still listed as a babyface in WWE. Like, you have like the characters from the Firefly Funhouse just appearing whenever like a big moment happens. I want to like this. That's the thing. I really, really, really want to like Bray Wyatt because I'm guilty of what I just said. I am trying in my brain to make up for what they screwed up 7 or 8 years ago. Do you think, first of all, before I go any further, do you agree that they screwed him up in his original version of himself?
Yes, I do. And I don't know where the fault lies with that. I'm sure it's not 100% on either side. I'm sure it was a mix. I'm sure that, maybe there were some bad ideas pitched by Bray that they went with, and then the trust between, the writing staff and management and Bray was, the trust there got dissolved because they went with something he said and then it didn't work, or vice versa, and now Bray is doing something that he doesn't want to do and I think it's stupid, and management, like, there probably is blame on both sides for it. Do I think it was the worst collapse of all time? No. But I think that with Bray Wyatt in the past, they had that chance. I remember that very well, at WrestleMania 32, as you said. And and especially with WrestleMania 33 when I was there, and they had Randy Orton and him, and the bizarre stuff on the ring. That's what I'm talking about. There always has to be this weird witchcraft during the match. Like, why? It doesn't need to be like that. Or the red light with the Fiend, or like, stop. Like, as you said, it is exactly what it is. It's a independent film B-rated movie every time he comes out, and I don't like that. It's not easy to identify and connect with that. However, to answer your question, do I think that that it was it's a problem that in the past that they screwed him over, or at least he wasn't put in a position that he should have been? Is it affecting my thought about him now? I mean, I'm trying not to think about it, but in the past, yeah, I mean, he could have been WWE champion and been a champion for a long time. And, the Swamp Cult leader did, I think, run its course, but at the Wyatt family as a whole was sorely underutilized, no doubt. And to put a bow on that, I think that, The Rock pinning Eric Rowan in like 2 seconds is 5 levels of bad. So much is bad with that. So much is wrong with that. And, that's my answer.
Yeah, so I guess all in all is I really want to like this. I still, when he cuts a promo, even if it is mumbo jumbo, or what did LA Knight say? A gobbledygook. The way he delivers his promo still captivates me. Yeah, he still is a very, very good talker, and that's a credit to him, is that he gets me, and I'm sure many intrigued by saying nothing. He says nothing, and he gets people intrigued. And there are parts about this story that are brilliant. Like the barcode stuff, like the best part of his return was the build up to his return. Like the barcode stuff and like all the Morse code stuff, and that was brilliant. And I think why I'm frustrated with it, and I'm sure you're in the same boat, is that you want to like it so bad, and there's elements about him and the story that captivate you, but then in the end, the actual root and the actual, like, I guess, main point of what's going on makes no sense. And that's what makes it worse, is that it's not complete garbage all the way around. It's that there's reason for optimism. You get hooked. There's things you really like, but then when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's just gobbledygook.
That's exactly, I think, the problem that I have with it. And again, as you said, Bray Wyatt's a really good talker, and he does have that innate rare ability that even when he says absolutely nothing, he can encapsulate you. He's like a politician, right? Like, he can say absolutely nothing, but it made you feel like he said something, and then you go back and be like, wait, no, what was the substance of that again? Like, just talk plainly. He doesn't know how to just speak plainly in promos, and there's the advantage to that is, as you said, even if he's got nothing to say, it makes it feel important. Even if when you just simplify it and just like rinse it off with water, you're like, what was that? That was a bunch of nothing. But people are encapsulated by it, and I get it. He is, and even though he is, you still get entranced by it. But at the same time, there's gonna reach a breaking point. Even as talented as and the skill that you have with that, it's going to eventually reach its breaking point and be exposed of like, okay, this is still cool, but like, where are we going with this? And I think that's where some fans are. He had that same problem when he was the cult leader. We've seen hundreds of promos of him week after week in the backstage area with like that light on shining down on him, and he says a bunch of like nothing. And we saw that. How many times have we seen that? And it's still intriguing to watch. But he's carried that over into this character, except it's this evolution of who he is. I guess he's trying to be his authentic self, whatever version of that this is. But I don't know. I agree. I want to like this too, and I'm not completely giving up on it. I'm still waiting. To me, if we get to Mania and there's no big payoff or nothing, okay, then I think we can pass judgment. Right now, I'm passing judgment that it's simply starting to disconnect with me, and I think it's starting to disconnect with a large portion of the audience. We still like Bray, his entrances, he's very theatrical, but there's a lot of sizzle and no steak, as they say. Like there's got to be some kind of substance we can sink our teeth into, something easily to understand. Where are they going instead of just gobbledygook? And yeah, I mean, like honestly, I love it. It's so perfect. I love LA Knight to me, even in that loss. I'm a LA Knight fan right now. I'm a massive LA Knight fan. He has really from what was he before this? He was Max Dupree. My God, yeah, that you talk about Vince taking something that wasn't broken and making it Vincified. And now he's back to what worked. And my God, I could see, and I hope that at some point LA Knight becomes a single star, like a champion rather. I would love to see him carrying gold. He is a future major star. I can't wait to see what he has. So that's the positive of this is LA Knight is going to be a massive star.
Do you think any of this is Bray Wyatt trying to overcompensate for lost time?
Well, yeah, it could be. I mean, I think, right, like as you said at the beginning of this conversation with Bray, I think he's trying to show what he wanted to do maybe when he couldn't with Vince in charge, maybe with Triple H being a little more lenient and whatever he wants to whatever path he wants to take, he's able to now do and have that freedom where Vince was more like, nope, this is where we're going. This is how I see you. So I think maybe he could be. Maybe he is playing out his story that he wanted to at one point in his career. But again, can we move it along? Can we get some answers here? So it could be him making up for lost time. But if you're making up for lost time, wouldn't you be moving things along a little more quickly? For me, it's just like he's stringing. I feel like we're being strung along to nothing. You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like I'm being pulled along and there's no payoff. I have that feeling right now because as you said, the identity of Uncle Howdy has kind of really lost steam. People don't even seem to really care that much anymore. It's not the talking point. I feel like we're being led to like nothing. It's just, I feel like I'm being taken for a ride right now.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks. It's terrible when you have a situation like this but maybe we just had the bar set too high. I often wonder, was Vince just so bad utilizing Bray that and I guess this kind of ties into the whole overrated question that we started here with, but did people just overrate him on his own? Because it wasn't like WWE overrated him. Hell, under Vince, he was underrated. He was underutilized. So, I just wonder if this was just kind of a product of Vince being so down on the guy, because I don't think he's as bad. I feel like at one point he's going to have to come back up, right? It can't be this uninteresting all the way through, because the thing is where does he even go from here? I thought that I was so positive that the ending of the Royal Rumble match with him and LA Knight was going to be Uncle Howdy costing him LA Knight getting the victory. So then that gives LA Knight a bump. He gets a big victory. And then you have the setup between Bray and Uncle Howdy, and then that builds to WrestleMania for who the reveal of Uncle Howdy is. But now, like, Bray wins, but it doesn't really even feel like a win. And it's like a payoff that we didn't even know was happening. You know, a couple weeks ago, Uncle Howdy was like, at the beginning, Uncle Howdy was terrorizing Bray and hitting him with Sister Abigail. And now he is Bray. And I get it that it's supposed to be Bray trying to overcome his past demon. But then it comes into like, dude, like, how much do you want me to think here, man? Like, I don't want to think that in depth. Like, I'm all for long-term storytelling and thorough storytelling and attention to detail. I'm all for that. But it's become so compounded now that sometimes I'm just like, dude, like, what the hell is this? And that's why, like, the rocking chair scene of, like, now they're a tag team. Like, are they going to go for the tag title? Like, that would be hilarious. Like, imagine it was just this big ruse, like, a work on all of us, and they just become, like, a tag team. Like, I don't even know anymore. It's possible.
That's so funny. Yeah, it could. That would be, you talk about the fans just, I mean, booing that out of the building. Yeah, I mean, but, that's possible too, and you're right. I mean, he's his friend. He's not. I am Uncle Howdy. I'm not Uncle Howdy. Where's Alexa Bliss? We didn't even talk about her in this whole thing. Where is she still gonna somehow get into the Wyatt Five, a group that doesn't exist but people made it exist? Like, you know, what about other people? Like, there's so many unanswered questions, but the motivation to find those answers to questions is fading very quickly because it's so. The messaging is everywhere. There's no like straight path for this. And like you said, I'm all for, and I want thorough storytelling. I like detail. But when you're just sending constant mixed messages where you think people are just so enthralled with you being so cryptic, it reaches a point of just exhaustion. And I think that's the word for me, is just I'm exhausted by this. And could they wrote me back in? Sure. Bray Wyatt's super talented, but I'm just exhausted. My brain doesn't have the capacity to try to decode everything he says, every breath, every movement, I'm not going there. Some fans may, most won't. I'm just exhausted. You know, let's move this along. Where are we going? Take me there and stop with the here, there, 5 detours and a pit stop. Can we just stop overthinking? It's like we're inside of Bray Wyatt's mind, and like if this is what being inside of Bray Wyatt's mind is, I don't want to be there. Like if the Firefly Funhouse was any indication, I feel like I'm living that. When I watch his stuff, it's too much for me. That's not how my mind works. So
I wonder if there's a situation where, like, first of all, I wonder how much rope he has with Triple H. And I wonder if there's a point where Triple H just says, you know what, that's it, I'm done with this, and just obviously doesn't fire him, because I think you could still use Bray Wyatt in a way, or if he just pulls the rug out from under it. And it's just like, look, it's not working. We're just going to change course. Do you think, because I was about to say, well, we have to get to a payoff first, but what the hell is the payoff? Like, where are we going? You know what I mean? Like,
maybe Roman Reigns? Bray Wyatt, Roman Reigns is a huge match that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, because I honestly don't even care who Uncle Howdy is anymore, because to me, Uncle Howdy isn't even an interesting character to me anymore.
It's The Rock.
Like, okay. Yeah, it's The Rock. I mean, so he's clearly a wrestler. He did a spot. He jumped off the scaffolding. Okay, so but he's also Bray Wyatt, but he's not. I honestly don't even care about who it is anymore, and I'm checked out of the identity of Uncle Howdy. So there's that. But as far as Bray Wyatt and Roman goes, they haven't told that story, so I think they could go there. I think Bray Wyatt, Roman Reigns, they have a history. Roman Reigns, I believe, won the Universal Championship from Bray Wyatt that started this whole thing. So there is a lot of history there, and I think, once they get to that, I might be reinvested again, but who knows if Roman will be champion at that point. I mean, there's a zillion factors, but all right. And any final comments before we end this whole thing?
No, I think we could. I think we're Bray Wyatt out. I think we've gone down.
Yes.
It just talking about it has kind of made my head hurt, but
I know it shouldn't be that way.
No, not at all.
Like, and think about how simple the story is with Sami and Roman, and just so easy to follow and easy to understand, and we're all invested emotionally, and that's to me. Now, it's not always the formula, but more often than not, simpler is better. So, all right. Well, thanks so much for joining me. But before you go, of course, you can tell everyone what the latest show you had on Retro was. I believe it was a big show, right? ECW for his run in the quote-unquote WWE version of ECW?
Yeah, I covered his 6-month run on the ECW brand in 2006 from June to December, where he won the ECW championship. And I think in a lot of ways you can make the case that it was the most significant run of Big Show's career. You know, he was the face of that brand. He probably his most dominant run by a wide margin. And I think in large part he got that push because of Rob Van Dam's real life DUI and Kurt Angle quitting on WWE like 2 weeks after being drafted to the ECW brand when he was supposed to be the face of that, and subsequently signing with TNA Impact Wrestling. And I mean, Big Show winning the ECW championship gave him a bragging right that nobody else has, to say the only wrestler to ever hold the ECW, WWE, and WCW World Heavyweight Championships. So, I mean, that's a pretty cool claim to fame for the Big Show. But, I mean, I guess just quickly, do you remember that run at all? And do you think that was the most significant run of his career?
I think it could have been. I remember it vaguely. It's not something that I go back to on a weekly basis and YouTube it or anything, but I do remember it, and there was some significance to it. I think Big Show actually added a little bit of credibility to that brand that ultimately was viewed as a failure. But during that time, yes, I think Big Show, you could argue it was one of his biggest runs. And again, for the reboot failure that it was, at least during this time, I think it was somewhat credible given Big Show's status and what he'd accomplished in WWE up to that point. So, yes. But, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And, we'll both take a breath. We'll both, lay our heads down tonight and try to decode this whole Bray Wyatt thing. And so we will be chatting again next week.
Looking forward to it, man. Talk next week.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.